If you've ever looked at your life and thought, why doesn't this feel like me anymore?
I grew up with a Filipino immigrant family. I was very much accustomed to being the good girl and being the A+ student. I think that those early days really influenced this idea of, in order for me to be loved, in order for me to be accepted, I looked outside of myself.
What point did you begin to realize that you were living a life that just no longer felt aligned to who you actually were inside?
I remember washing the dishes thinking, is this the life you really want? What you're gonna be doing for the rest of your existence and however long you have on this earth? There was this part of me that was just like, hell no, don't settle for this.
One of the things that you talk about are life contracts.
We often bind ourselves to these beliefs that have been ingrained through expectations. I want every woman to realize that centering yourself and your desires and your needs and what you want in life is not selfish.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Emotionally Wealthy podcast. If you've ever looked at your life and thought, why doesn't this feel like me anymore? What happened to the person that I used to be or wanted to be? Then you are going to want to tune in and be fully present for this episode. My guest today is Annalyn Cruz. Annalyn is a sovereignty coach, speaker, and the creator of Spotlight, a transformational coaching and mentoring journey where she helps women heal from the heart and rebuild their lives while guiding them to find their way back to themselves in ways that they could never have imagined possible. Annalyn's work became deeply personal after navigating a destructive and heartbreaking relationship in her 30s, an experience that forced her to confront how much of herself she had abandoned in the process. She now views that relationship as a portal to her purpose, a rebirth of becoming the woman that she is today, helping other women do the same for themselves. This conversation today is an invitation to you to question who you had to become in order to find who you truly were all along, what fully living really is, and to what might happen if you finally choose yourself. Annalyn, welcome to Emotionally Wealthy. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you, Karen. I'm excited. I'm here too.
I want to start by asking you, we know that early messages influence and shape the experiences that we have in our adulthood and the relationships that we choose. So I'd love to start by getting a little bit of your story, Annalyn, and having you tell us what some of those early messages, verbal or nonverbal, were that you got around seeking validation, belonging, or even approval of who you were supposed to be.
Yeah. I think it started way back in the day, when I was a small child, a little girl, right? I grew up in the LA area in Los Angeles, with a Filipino immigrant family. Both of my parents are from the Philippines. And that cultural piece, I think, is really important to talk
Yep.
about because I was very much accustomed to being the good girl and being the A+ student, or at least striving for
Yep.
both of those things. And I also saw that my parents stayed in a marriage that
Mhm.
wasn't always the best, right? And I grew up seeing what it meant to be in partnership, but it wasn't always in the most healthy, emotionally healthy ways.
Yeah.
And so I think that those early days really influenced this idea of, in order for me to be loved, in order for me to be accepted and to be validated for the person that I was, I looked outside of myself. And I did this up until probably the point when I turned 40 or so, you
Yeah.
know? And it was this continual looking outside of myself that I think really damaged the way in which I wasn't able to view who I was internally because
Yeah.
I was always seeking it from someone else, right? Whether it was a relationship I was in, whether it was a manager that I had in the workplace, it's like, please accept me, please, right? Like, and it wasn't necessarily conscious. I think that's the thing is that I was doing these types of, behaviors and had these internal thoughts without being fully conscious of them. So, I think when I was in my former partnership and marriage, because that was sort of my tipping point of when I really started to give a lot of my power away, to
Yeah.
be completely blunt and honest. I lost my voice even more than, what I had grown up with. Like, I did a lot of work in my 20s through therapy and just getting other, mentorship to work on a lot of these issues that I talked about early on, and yet I found myself in a situation and with a partner who in some ways like really activated some of these feelings of not enoughness,
Yeah.
right? And so being in that for 5 years was something that completely changed my life, and at the time I thought, "Wow, I'm never going to feel better from this." And then I realized that holy shit, my life could actually be better now
Yeah.
without the fairy tale that I thought I was living at the
Yeah.
time or striving for.
When I hear you talk about the experiences that you had growing up in your family of origin, and then how that very easily kind of translated into the relationship and the person that you chose, um, who, in one way or another, was going to reenact a lot of those experiences without you obviously being conscious of that. It just goes to show how so many of our early childhood experiences really influence and impact the relationships, the dynamics, specifically the patterns that we look for, not because they're necessarily good for us, not because they don't contribute to dysfunction, but because they're familiar and there's comfort in familiarity, even if it's not good for us. When you talk about that relationship in your 30s, Annalyn, and you're talking about specifically that it forced you to confront things about yourself. I'm curious to know, were you still in the relationship when you started to see those things, or did this thing
Yeah.
happen, these realizations happen afterwards? Like, at what point did you begin to realize that you were living a life that just no longer felt aligned to who you actually were inside?
To be honest, as I'm hearing your question, I'm like, I kinda knew all along. There
Mm,
were there were
yeah.
micro moments along the 5 years where I was like,
Yeah.
"Girl, what you doing?" You know? Like, and it was like, maybe it's the wise, sage part of me, maybe it was the me now that was like, you don't have to be in this, right? You don't have to feel this way. You know that you have so much, like, power and fire in you, and I will tell you something that one of my best friends who rest in peace, Christina, right? I wanna just
Mm,
say her name because one of the things that she had said to me early on was after it was done, was, "Annalyn, you were a shell of yourself
mm.
in that relationship. Do you recognize that?" And,
Wow,
like,
that must have hit. I mean, as I'm hearing you say it, it hit.
it hit. And I had heard versions of that from other friends, but because I had so much reverence and still do for her and she was so wise and so loving, and I knew it was coming from a place of, "I just want you to know what I saw." I will say that that was a bit of the moment where I was like, I can't keep doing these types of relationships, right? Because while I talk about that particular time, I've done those behaviors in other relationships where I've quieted my voice or, made myself smaller in order to feel loved or to feel that sense of belonging. And I remember also there was one day where I was just kind of washing the dishes and I had this quiet moment in my kitchen in the house that I shared with my partner at the time. And I was just sort of washing the dishes thinking, is this the life you really want?
Mm.
Right? Like, is this really what you're going to be doing for the rest of your existence and however long you have on this earth? And I felt like there was this part of me that was just like, hell no. Like, don't settle for this. Like, you need something more aligned, or you need to be by yourself. Whether it's someone else or being quote unquote alone, this is not it. But again, I had those micro moments here and there, but I kept pushing it down. And I think that's the part where I'm like, oof, when we start hearing those little voices within us, it's like we need to pay attention, you know?
Yeah, and it sounds like not just what it sounds like, it's also what I know to be true about you is that you are very much the intuitive person. We all have amazing intuition.
Yeah.
And when you start listening to it, when you start connecting again to your internal desires and that intuition that does take you to those desires, it makes you recognize that there are things there that you want for yourself. I think this is where a certain amount of awakening in us happens, that stirring, that friction, that tension, whatever you want to call it, starts happening. And we start looking at ourselves in the relationships that we're in a little differently. That can also be a little scary because it means a lot of times that confronting and facing these things means that we need to maybe address the things that we haven't wanted to address. Because, like you said, you kind of always knew. Can you specifically tell me in the ways where you quiet yourself? Because I think there's a tendency for people to think or feel that, oh, when we quiet ourselves, it means that we like quite literally quiet ourselves. But that's not necessarily true, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the quieting myself is exactly what you just said of ignoring my intuition,
Mm.
ignoring
Hmm.
those pings. I quieted that part of myself that's so powerful, right? And this internal knowing of who I was at the time, while it's not quite the same of where I am today, I still knew myself fairly well, right?
Yeah.
At that point in the relationship, and yet I tamped that down. It's almost like a pressure cooker where you start feeling it or
Yes.
seeing it sizzle, and I'm just like, "No, no, shh, just keep the peace for this." uh, Once again, another argument, right? Like, just keep the peace, and that's also, I think, where I still had some of my fire in me, but after a while, I was like, "You know what? It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I am gonna quiet down and I'm just gonna try and keep the peace in this situation." But every time I did that, it was almost like another paper cut. It's
Yeah.
like another one. It's like, here I go again. Like, here's
Hmm.
another way in which I felt like my power was just continuing to dissipate. I want to mention this other piece too, because being an overachiever or former recovering overachiever, recovering perfectionist, I try to keep up appearances, right? And so what I mean by that is that when I was at work, I almost like double, tripled my effort to make sure that people didn't know how unhappy I was on the inside at
Hmm.
home. And right, and it's like, let me protect whatever image people had of me being the woohoo, Ooh, Annalyn, because that didn't go away, but I almost felt like I had to turn it up more
Yeah,
in order to not be fully seen for in the truth that I was in. Does that make sense?
absolutely. I mean, it was the thing that was helping you and serving you to cope,
Yeah.
and then also becoming the thing that no longer served you. And bringing out, I think, on some level, that self abandonment, because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, theme of self abandonment in one way or another, whether it was to keep up with the image, or
Yeah.
whether it was to keep the peace at home. Right? There's a certain level of self abandonment that you were going through. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, if you did you experience that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would say that when it was all said and done
Hmm.
and we moved our separate ways, I had to figure out who the F I was at
Hmm.
that point, right? And I think what I really spent some time with was learning what self-compassion truly meant in practice, right? It sounds good in theory, but it's like, what does that really mean in practice? And
It's
for
really
me,
hard. Yeah,
oh gosh, it was so hard,
it's hard.
especially being the identities that I held on to, right? It's like, no, gotta get it right the first time. And right. And being the good girl or the good wife or whatever that conjures up for folks. So I had to really learn what self-compassion meant. And for me, it was forgiving that version of myself that
Mm,
stayed as long as I did.
yeah,
And it because for a while I was really pissed off at that version of me. I'm like, how could you do that? You should have known better. Like, and so then I was berating myself, right?
yeah,
Through the process immediately afterwards. Like, how could you have not known better? And now I could sit here and be like, oh, that version was just doing the best she could,
yes,
right?
yes, yeah,
Those were the coping mechanisms I had. Like,
yeah,
that was what I was resourced with at the time. I understand that now, but it's so easy for many of us to go back in time and kind of yell at our past selves or our younger selves, like, "You should have known better," and, you
yeah,
know, "Why the hell did you do XYZ?" All the gremlins, right, that can pop up.
yeah,
And so I had to figure out what it meant to now be on a solo journey when I thought I had signed up for the partnership marriage journey,
yeah,
right? And I will tell you, and I think things are changing a little bit nowadays, but there is still this exclusivity or this sort of accolade for being married, having kids, having the house, like having the dream life that many young girls and young women are fed to say this is the ultimate dream, and if it dissipates, then what? And
yeah.
I felt like a failure at that time. I w- and girl, you know, being a failure as an A plus student,
Oh, we don't do we
I
don't we don't do well with that.
I
Yeah,
felt like I failed at partnership, I failed at marriage, and failed of I failed at being truly loved,
yeah,
you know? And it's like, oh, that is like heartbreaking for my past self to, like to just
yeah,
sit with. It's like, no, you didn't fail, right? Like
yeah,
it's just it wasn't the right person. It wasn't the right alignment. Like,
yeah. I mean, the
yeah,
responsibility in the relationship is that there are two people in a relationship, right? And there's a saying that I heard a long time ago, and I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not butchering this up, but it's like if you have to lose your half of the whole in order to be a part of the whole, is it worth it? Right?
to
And
that,
and
yeah.
and I also I wanna thank you also, Annalyn, um, for creating that space that you created a minute ago when you talked about how you were, really pissed off and berating that self that was in that relationship, and
Yeah.
then realizing that she was just doing the best she could with what she had. Because the reality is that you can outgrow a version of yourself without necessarily having to reject that version. That version did what it had to do with what it had. It did the best that it could with
Yeah.
the awareness, the emotional maturity, with the value systems that had been established maybe for her,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
and probably without a lot of margin for discovery, right? A self-discovery. So I really want to thank you for giving that space. I think people need to hear that. I think women need to hear that. You know, you don't know what you don't know. So let's just give ourselves a little bit of grace when we come to moments of awakening. These moments of awakening are not meant to then, then punish yourself for what you did in the past. They're just meant to let you know,
That's right.
oh, you're now in a different place. I
Yeah.
want to ask you about the women that you work with. Um, where do you most where do you most often see um, women, and specifically in their second act, right?
Mhm.
In the entering the bigger years, where do you see them being most challenged or having the most difficulty in just truly becoming fierce and free? What are the
Mhm.
things that you see holding them back the most? And I know that
Yeah,
everybody's different and it's a different situation, but I feel like there are probably some themes that you've seen,
definitely.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say it's similar to the path that I think I've walked myself, which is one, wow, there's this sort of like awakening moment or this, I don't know if this is the life I really want.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
that there's dimensions of my life that don't feel alive in me anymore, or maybe they never did. So whether that's, you know, partnership, the career that they're in, or recently retired, or they're looking at the other relationships in their lives and they're like, this isn't how I want to feel day to day, but I feel stuck. What am I supposed to do now that I'm 40, 50, 60? It's like, is it too late for me? Like, I've literally had people say, Annalyn, am I too late to the game? Like, can I even change things up at this point? Because they're kind of seeing it from this sort of stuck lens of, I gotta just stick with it, right? And I'm
Yeah.
and I'm always the one saying, "It's never too late," right? Like, no, this is absolutely not the end for you. Like, in fact, the fact that you and I are having this conversation is an opening to the portal of possibilities that you haven't even thought of, dreamt of, or maybe you've tamped that down for whatever reason. And I'm here to let you know and to remind you that your fire is still here, right? And it
Yeah.
might feel like a little flame or maybe like the ignition's on just a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
like, yes, like it's absolutely possible for you. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is that we have some old belief systems, right? We have
Mhm.
some old operating systems in our minds that have then transferred into our bodies and our psyche of uh I'm not deserving of this new job or this new relationship. And so there's this piece around worthiness of, am I worthy enough to pursue this new pathway for myself? And it feels so overwhelming. I would
Yeah.
say that that's the other thing, that it's almost too much to tackle on their own. So then they stay, right?
Yeah.
And so I know that deeply because I've been there.
Yeah.
It may feel easier to just stay in the pain or to stay in the what I call the flatlining of life, where it's just like, I'm just here. I'm just
That's
waking up
scary.
each
That's
day.
actually, that's a really powerful that scares me when you put it into that context, actually, that scared me more than the thought of, like,
Mm.
potentially making changes, you
What
know?
was scary about it?
Well, I mean, the finality of it. Like,
Mm.
is this it? Is
Yeah.
this it? Is this all I have? You know, is this all I get to get?
Mm. Yeah.
And, what you were mentioning before also, Annalyn, about, before you were talking about the overwhelm connected to changing,
Mhm.
when you were talking about like, well, I've been doing this for so long and da da da, it reminded me of a concept called the sunk cost fallacy, which
Mm.
is the premise around, well, I've put all this money into it. I've put all this time into it. I've been into it. I've been in here 20 years. I've been in it 10 years. I've done this work for so long or been in the relationship. The fallacy being around, I have sunk so much of whatever the resource is into this, and it's caused me so much. It's cost me so much that at this point, you know, I really shouldn't get out. I should stick with it.
I was just gonna say, let's just stick with it, right? It's like the conversation we tell ourselves. Exactly, yes, it's the, "I've put in so much time, effort, money," whatever the case may be. "I've done my time, so shouldn't I just continue to stick it out?" Like,
But isn't that
because
related to guilt? Is that related to guilt? Because when I think about that, I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I put so much money into it or I've put so much time to make a change or say, oh, you know what? This isn't really for me. There's a lot of guilt involved because now it's not just me. It's also like, oh, but they're
Mhm,
supporting me in one way or another, right? Am I letting
yeah,
people down?
yep. I was also gonna mention, I also learned to just stick it out through my culture, how I saw my parents stick out their marriage, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this there's this, like, longevity, I've put in my time, and it's like I can't change that because how is that gonna impact the other person? How is that gonna impact people at work if I leave? I had a recent client who was really sitting with that guilt of
Yeah.
leaving a job after 19 years, right? And the guilt she felt more about how is this gonna impact the team versus, "Wait, how is this actually impacting me?" Right? And so a lot of the
Well,
work
because
we
the
do
sticking it out is
on that.
rewarded, right? Isn't that like
Yes.
your whether it's your parents, like, yeah, it doesn't matter how hard it gets. They stuck it through. They made it to 20, they made it to 30, they made it to 40, right? I've
Mhm.
been here 19 years. So what if you're miserable and you are now a shell of yourself? You stuck
Yeah.
it through. You stuck it through.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And the other thing I was gonna add to that is there's also well, I know what this pain is, right? Like, I know
Yeah.
I know this devil, like, I know this inside and out for years versus this unknown that you're telling me is possible for me.
Yeah.
That's scary as shit sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't know what's on the other side of that door, that portal. And I always try to tell folks and tell my clients, like, what is possible here is absolutely gonna be better than the pain you're in now. I
Yeah.
could I could almost guarantee that because you're no longer draining your life force energy to be in something that's clearly not working for you or your nervous system or your mental health, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
you know that this isn't working. So let's move
Yeah.
you towards something that is more uh in alignment and that could actually spark more energy in your system and for you. And it's yeah. And I've never had a client that has said, you know what? I really regret making that amazing decision to choose myself and a pathway that's more aligned, you know?
Well, and look, when you think about the fear, which is very real, about not knowing what's on the other side of it. Honestly, when you said that, my mind went to, yeah, but you already know what's here, which is that flat line.
Mhm.
You already know what's here. So, look, you might be okay with it, and you might decide, okay, it's not worth the risk for me, the emotional, psychological, financial, whatever it is that you're facing. But you're in the flat line potentially.
Yeah.
So just know
Yeah.
that, right?
Right. Right. And absolutely, people can choose to keep flatlining, but I'm always gonna stand up and fight for I want you to have more than the flat line. Like I want you to feel the high highs, and with that, you're going to feel the low lows, right?
Yeah,
And that's fully living to me is like being able to move through um these these peaks and valleys of life, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the things that you talk about are life contracts, the beliefs and behaviors shaped by others that no longer serve us. Talk to me a little bit more about that because, first of all, it's such an interesting term to use, life contracts. How do people begin to recognize those contracts in their own lives? And obviously, everyone's different, but tell me a little bit more about life contracts and what you mean by them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just note that I did not make up this term originally, that it was
Hmm.
within conversations I've had with other coaches over the years. And when I heard about it initially a few years ago, it really clicked to me of wow, there are ways in which we have been telling ourselves and binding to these contracts of, "Okay, yes, I need to keep being the good girl," right?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? How is that showing up in my life today? And maybe it could be if I'm feeling a certain way with a friend and I don't like what she said, I'm just gonna keep the peace in that, and I'm not
Hmm.
gonna tell her how her comment actually hurt me in that conversation. Or I'm gonna keep being the good girl at work and being the yes woman on the team. And I keep holding on to this good girl, good employee, like do what I'm told because again, that's how I was conditioned at an early age to again, be loved and accepted meant to obey. And then talking with other women that then led to my coaching practice and what I was discovering and leading these workshops on life contracts is that we often bind ourselves to these beliefs that have been ingrained through expectations, whether external or internal, that we have of ourselves.
Yeah.
It's the expectations, it's the actions we take as a result of those expectations, and then there comes a point when we're like, "Hold up. I don't actually have to keep this life contract in my life anymore." Like, yeah, I wanna let that ish go, you know? And so there's
Yeah.
this oftentimes aha moment when I'm working with clients, whether it's in group or one to one, where they realize like, "Wow, I I could be divorced and I still have this mentality of what does it mean to be the good wife? The leader that always has her stuff together when really like she's putting everyone else first and meanwhile she's going through burnout and just breaking down, right?
Yeah.
And so what I bring in is this idea of let's call in a new contract for yourself, a new life, a new way of being, a new behavior, and one action you could take starting today that's going to move you to a place that is more in alignment of who you are today. And let's get rid of this baggage of this old life contract that is bringing you down, essentially, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
it's just sucking the life out of you. So let's release you from that. And I do a whole like burning ceremony. It's very I think a very spiritual practice once someone can recognize like, "Oh, I have been carrying this contract for so long and I'm ready to get rid of it. I'm ready to break it.
Yeah,
I'm ready to
and you may
burn
not
it."
know, yeah, and you may not know exactly how to do it, but that's okay. That's where you come in, your program. I'd like to, switch gears a bit
Yeah.
and talk about your coaching program, Spotlight,
Yeah.
choosing spark, sovereignty, and self-love. Your work incorporates embodiment, movement, intuition, and as you were saying, spiritual practices as well. Why all of those different approaches? What is it about tapping into those different things or those different areas that makes it powerful or makes things more accessible? Tell me about why those things versus just 1 or 2 or, 3.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, they have been healing practices that I've witnessed within myself, right? And they have been healing practices that I've witnessed with other women in these spaces in which I learned these modalities. And I believe that many of us are taught to live from the neck up, meaning the mind rules everything, right? And we could talk ourselves into staying in a situation we no longer want to be in, or we can keep spinning in sort of an anxiety loop. What I have learned over time is that for us to, especially for women, to drop into our bodies, right? And to move slowly in ways in which is counterculture to what we're often told, like, go, 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 right? Like, keep doing the thing, just keep being resilient. And it's like, okay, can I actually slow down and allow myself to breathe and to notice what's happening to me in this moment? Right? And then, oh, by like touching my arms slowly or like running my fingers through my hair, I'm thinking about the sensual embodiment piece and the
Mhm.
dance. It's like, oh, can I actually feel a little bit of pleasure from this? Right. And what
Mhm.
does that open up? Or am I dealing with some grief over, I first discovered this practice in going through a breakup over 20 years ago, and I
Yeah.
wanted to come back to myself in ways that I couldn't do in talk therapy, to be
Yep.
honest.
Mhm.
And so, um, that along with noticing our own energy, noticing our nervous system and how it's reacting in these moments, like, these are some of the ways in which I introduce clients to these modalities that sometimes they have familiarity with and sometimes they're brand new to it.
Mhm.
And what I've discovered is that it's a way to tap into their knowledge, to their deep wisdom, and also realize that they have to do this on their own,
Mhm.
right? I think I work with a lot of women who are so used to like, I get my shit done. Again, I'm high achieving or like I appear as if I have everything together. And in the sessions, they start realizing one, they don't have to, right? They could literally like um put their hair down and relax a bit more and to know that they could quote unquote fall apart because I'm there to help catch them and to also introduce them to these newer modalities that support them and their system.
Yeah.
And each module, each time we meet, it builds upon the other one. And what I have found is that there's this newer, sort of upgraded awakening with the tools and practices and being able to talk through it of how can I be the leader of my life now, right? I might be a leader at
Mm.
work. I might be able to lead others, but you know what? I'm taking a stand for myself today to say, I'm going to lead my life and rebuild in a way that feels so empowering. It feels fierce, right? It feels like there's this feralness that I think uh,
Mhm.
happens as well, where it's like, yeah, what is my old way, or maybe a way in which I haven't even explored within myself to be different this time around, that they actually start allowing themselves
Yeah.
to feel and experience a different way of being and doing their life way differently than they had before.
Yeah. Or coming back to themselves, that younger self that they lost or that they put away for a bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's some of the work that I do around the parts work of let's not shame the 30-year-old version or even the 15-year-old that did the best she could at the time. She might be coming back into the conversation to let you know, like, "Hey, here's something I want you to remember about who you were, like, 20
Yeah.
years ago, 30 years ago."
What's some of that wisdom that that younger self, if we are in a space where we're allowing that younger self to come back in,
Yeah. Yeah.
what can we learn if we listen?
Playfulness is one, right? I
Yeah.
think that there's the lightness of our inner child if we had that, right? Like the lightness, hey, I don't have to do things the way everyone else does things, or I'm gonna allow myself to play. I'm gonna allow myself to maybe be Club Karen or Club Annalyn back when we were like 19, 20, It's like that's something that I did in a workshop. I'm like, "What's your club name?" And that sparked a huge
It's so fun.
conversation of, "Oh my gosh, when I was at the club, I was dancing on top of the bars," or I just walked in just knowing that I felt so good about myself, and and it's like, "And where is she now?" Right? And they're able to, like, tap into that version of themselves where there was some spark there, or there was this sense of, like, "Yeah, I'm my own person." Right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Ah,
let's not be upset when she comes into the conversation. It's like, let's actually stop and listen to what she has to tell us
yeah.
today.
Yeah. And, for anybody listening and saying, well, I can't let that, I'm not, Kiki anymore, right? Like my club name. And, I can't do like go all coyote ugly, dance on the
Right.
bar back in the, yeah, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, um, that part of yourself that holds space for fun and freedom and laughing from a place that makes your belly hurt.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's just that permission. That's it.
It's the self-permission, right? Like, oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to go there. Like, one of the things that I did literally, last week was I remembered, and this is dating myself, y'all, but it's like, right, Belinda
I just said
Carlisle's.
coyote ugly, okay? You could not have dated yourself more. Whatever you're about to say.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm, like, talking young, young days, like, '80s, but, I would listen to Belinda Carlisle's "Mad About You," if people know that song, and I remember dancing in my living room, and was dancing by myself, and I was this young little girl who just thought the world was so open for her, and I did not. I remember this, it's a core childhood memory that I did not give a shit of how I looked or how I was dancing, and I turned that song on last week, and I danced in my living room by myself and really tried to embody that version of me. And after I did that, I was like, wow, I feel so much better. I feel prepared for this masterclass. I'm ready to go, right? It's like
Yeah.
that was the spark that I needed to get in my body and also remember who I was back then. Cause she's not
Yeah.
gone,
No, she's
right?
not. She's right here. She's present. We're hearing her. She's here today. And this is it, right? Like, this is the proof
Yeah.
that you are made up of different parts of yourself. You don't have to choose. You don't have to choose one. And by the way, I just want to say, I'm like completely inspired to, after we're done with this episode, go and get a hairbrush and just like start thinking, it's just get in front of the mirror and be like, I think we're alone now.
Yeah.
Just like do it. Cause now like, oh, I'm all in my
Yes.
80s. I'm all in my 80s. Thank you. I'm so there.
It's so good. It's so
I'm so
good.
there.
Yeah, do it and
So
tell me how it goes.
Yeah, I might have to send you the video, actually. I'm not gonna tell you, I might just send you a video.
Love it.
So, I wanna ask you, um, what actually does it look like when you start to when you start to come back home to yourself after so many years, of shaping yourself, around everyone else? There's all these things that happen with your program and sort of the embodiment of all of these things. But what does it actually look like when your relationships or people's relationships stop getting defined through external validation and
Mhm.
you're just coming back to yourself?
Right, right. Well, we first of all, we start off with the curiosity of, wow, what's here now, right? Like, what's here now in terms of the dream you have for yourself? And it's not always clear when I work with people. Like, that's part of the process too, is getting to envision what that future is going to be like or what they want to move towards. And then it's what's getting in the way, right? So we talk about the life contracts. We talk about the belief systems that are no longer a part of where they want to continue to take their life. And then we kind of go through this journey of let me know what it feels like to embody more freedom in my life,
Yeah.
because I'm starting to activate that, right? I'm thinking from the client's point of view. It's like, yeah, I'm starting to embody this new sense of freedom and possibility. And when we start feeling that, then it starts unlocking some of the things that are in our brains that we cannot do it, right? It's like,
Mm.
all right, okay, I'm starting to feel it in my mind. I'm starting to feel it physically and spiritually and emotionally. It's like, okay. And then it's thinking about, okay, so now what? How is this impacting my relationships with other people in my life?
Yeah.
Do I have the right folks to support me in this new way of me being different, right? So we kind of what I call we do a hype crew inventory, meaning who's in your life, right? Like who's in your hype crew? Like, do you have that friend that's the ride or die that's gonna be like, I got you, girl. Like, no matter what, I have your back, right?
Yeah.
Or having that spark sister that's gonna be like, "Yes, you can do anything," and you just talking about it means that, "Let's go, let's go, let's, like, yes and each other's dreams," right?
Mhm.
So it's really about assessing, "Okay, I'm wanting this new life for myself. I'm wanting to heal from this heartbreak, or I'm wanting to move towards this more aligned life." You gotta have the right people in your
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to have the right support systems. And then we talk about like some of the grief that can come up, right?
There is
When
loss. There
there
is
is
loss.
loss,
Mhm.
because in the renewal, in the coming back home to yourself, there's got to be, and I'm using one of the words that one of my recent participants said, there's got to be some pruning that happens in our lives. We start pruning. Maybe it's different types of friends that no longer fit, or maybe we have to prune that job that is weighing us down. Like, we have to start figuring out, okay, what's not mine to keep holding on to?
Yeah.
And that's not my business anymore. And then what are the things that I want to keep in my life that are amazing and that I actually have so much gratitude for?
Yeah.
Right. And then at the end, I mean, what I hope is really that every woman that I support in my program recognizes that centering yourself and your desires and your needs and what you want in life is not selfish. In fact,
Yeah.
you doing that is you being a better mom. It's you being a better friend, sister, leader, because you're going to be coming from a place where you're filling your own cup with the energy that really drives you to be like the best version of yourself. If you
Yeah.
keep pouring into other people, which oftentimes I work with women who have poured into everybody else, and now they come to me like, I feel so depleted. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really a recentering and refocusing to um, enable them to see that, "Oh, I'm the greatest love of my life." And that's
Mm,
not selfish. I could
I love
still
that.
love and be in partnership with someone else, but recognize that I am the sun, like Christina Yaig said in Grey's Anatomy, if anyone remembers that clip. It was so poignant to me because I'm like, "Yeah, each of us are the freaking sun," right? Like,
Mhm.
we are at the center and we can't have that light dim. We can't let that go away.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I want every woman to realize that they are the love of their lives.
Ah, I love that. And I always say the most important and longest relationship that you'll ever have is the one that you have with yourself. So that's the
Yes,
first one that needs healing and attention and nurturing and loving care and loving kindness. Yeah.
absolutely.
So for the person that is listening to this and saying, "Yeah, I recognize myself. I want and need something, but I don't know where to start. This is scary. I need some guidance, some direction." Can you give one gentle or small step or strategy that that person in that particular situation can start,
Mhm.
like today?
Yeah. I think one of the first things is to put your hand over your heart and the other hand over your belly and to take a breath to say, I am more than okay to have this thought. I know it can feel overwhelming and just hold yourself literally in that. And the other thing I would say is to find that support, right? And the find that support is I am one of the folks that you could reach out to. If any of this conversation piqued your curiosity, if you're like, I don't know where to start, and like you say all these things, but you know, people can book a breakthrough clarity session with me, and it's like a no pressure conversation. It's just a way to actually think about some of the challenges that someone's going through and what is the future that she's wanting, right? Or at least getting curious about. You don't have to have all the answers. I want to be clear on that. So,
Yeah.
whew, taking that breath and then when you're ready, reaching out.
Yeah, and finding that support system wherever that might be.
Yep. Yep.
So I have a
Absolutely.
final question that I ask all of my guests because I'm very, very curious always, and it's always so interesting, so fascinating to hear the responses.
Hmm.
So that question for you is, how would you define emotional wealth?
Mm. Let me breathe into this. Emotional wealth. I think it's feeling really settled within one system, feeling fairly balanced most days. I can't say that all days will feel like this, but it is feeling gratitude for the life and the inner work that one has done within themselves, and to know that we continue to grow and evolve. And that to me is almost a full time job, which sounds a little scary, but it's actually the most amazing thing we could do for ourselves is having the wealth of knowing ourselves so deeply that we don't get stuck in the same patterns as before and we don't necessarily stay in the same relationships that make us feel small. It's knowing that we can continue to invest in ourselves emotionally, and what will happen is the abundance of knowing that, "Ooh, I actually got this. I may think I don't, but I
Mhm.
do."
Thank you, Annalyn. I want people to know where to find you. because there's just so much more. This is just, I mean, the actual tip of the iceberg of what you have to offer. How do people reach you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so they can go onto my website at grounded@wisdom.co. That's probably the best way to, reach out. But I also have an Instagram at grounded in wisdom. And if you want to hear some deeper thoughts from me, go to AnnalynCruz.substack.com. That's where I
Oof.
I talk
Yes.
a little bit more in detail, where you'll read some of my deepest thoughts, that's happening at the time. So those are some of the ways.
Annalyn Cruz, thank you so much for being here and for giving us so much. I really appreciate you so very, very much. And I want to encourage everyone to go visit Annalyn on her website or on Instagram if you want to know more. Thank you again for being here, Annalyn.
Thank you, Karen. It was wonderful to have this conversation. So appreciate having time with you always.
And thank you all for listening to Emotionally Wealthy. If this episode gave you insight, clarity, or perspective that you needed, please go ahead and share it with someone else who might need to hear it too. And if you're enjoying the show, leave a review. It really helps more people find these meaningful conversations. And until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay emotionally wealthy. I'll see you next time. Oh, hey, quick reminder for you that this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnoses, or treatment. Always consult a qualified professional with any questions you might have.
Thanks to our friends at BuzzSpear for helping with post-production and distribution.